What's up guys? Today I wanted to make a quick video talking about my headlight setup. I've actually got a couple different comments and people instant messaging me and stuff like that, basically asking about it, where you buy it, and a couple people asking how to wire it. So as for the setup and where to buy it, first off, buy it from Amazon or eBay. I've seen it on eBay now, but Amazon is the only one I've found lately. It's $105, I think. It does not come with the turn signals, but it comes with the brackets and all three lights. For mine, it's just kind of pieced together, my Z125 LED light bar, and then the two other LED light bars are just basically copies of it that I got off Amazon, and then the brackets I got from a buddy, and then the turn signals are TST turn signals. So you don't have to have all this exact stuff, but I highly recommend just buying it off Amazon. It's like $105 and it'd be cheaper to do that. Other than the light bar though, you are gonna need one more thing. You're going to need the bracket in the back. So the bracket is the headlight bracket for the OG Grom. If you have an OG Grom, you're fine. You have no issues. Just literally buy this, wire it up, and you're done. If you have an SF, you are gonna have issues. So you're gonna need to buy the OG Grom headlight bracket. Now, it's not very expensive. I believe it's like 25 bucks, 27, something like that. The problem is how to install it. It's a very irritating process to install it. Literally, that's the hardest thing to install, doing this whole entire thing. So, to install it, you have to take off your whole headlight, obviously. You have to take off your speedo, okay? But then you gotta take off all your handlebars and your top triple tree. Don't forget to take off your top triple tree. You need a 30mm socket. A lot of people don't have that. If you don't have that, you can't do it. It's very irritating. The bracket is not bolted in. It's actually got like prongs sticking up out of the top and the bottom, and they're held in by both the bottom and the top triple tree. Yeah, I'm saying that right. So it's irritating. I'm warning you, it's a very irritating install process. If you don't know how to work on a bike, I probably wouldn't do this, but I'm trying to warn you, it took me a while and it was very irritating to install. Another thing that I want to warn you guys about is the turn signals. So the turn signals are TST turn signals. They're actually for an FZ07. So I had them on my FZ, I upgraded to a different turn signal. So they're kind of weird. I don't know if the Grom TST turn signals will work. You could probably use a thinner turn signal. You don't have to have a turn signal. Technically, you do. Technically, to be legal, you do. But that's totally up to you. You do what you want. But these are really thick. So when I turn the handlebars, the turn signals actually hit the fairings on the side. It's not a big deal. The fairing just pushes out of the way a little bit, and it's honestly just barely scraping. But if I could do it again, I'd try to get some turn signals that were a little thinner. Now, if you've made it all the way through that, I know you want this thing, so it's gonna work. It's just an irritating process. Now, on to the wiring. The wiring is not very difficult, but it's a little tricky, so I'll try to explain it as basic and as simple as I can. And no, I'm not taking this apart. It took me forever to put together. I'm not taking it apart because it would be a disaster of wires, and literally I wouldn't even really be able to show you anything because everything is electrical taped and perfectly put away. Now for my setup, I ran the bottom two as the running light. Now you don't have to have two running lights, you can have one. Personally, I just wanted two running lights, so when you turn on the key, they come on. So the bottom two are on right now. When you want the high beam, you flip the switch. There's your high beam. You can wire them up however you want, but that's how I have them wired. And then you can also turn on your turn signal. So there's the high beam, turn signals are on, you know, everything works, everything's on. That's personally how I like it, but you don't have to do it that way. You could run them however you want. There's three, so it's kind of an odd number. You could run it all kinds of different ways. Now the way that I did it is all the ground wires for all three LED bars are tied in together and they're grounded to the frame. That's pretty much it. Just ground it to the frame, find a good ground. Don't ground it to the engine or, you know, a piece of plastic. Find a good ground it to the frame. Even the battery. I didn't say that. You could do the battery. Now the positive for the running light, okay? Whichever ones you want as the running light. The running lights will be on all the time as soon as you turn on the ignition. I got a 12 volt ignition, which is basically just 12 volts of power as soon as you turn on the ignition off of the tail light. The tail light has a black wire that is in the harness that shoots 12 volts through it when you turn on the ignition. Obviously, when you turn on the bike, the tail light comes on, so that's the wire. It is a black wire. If it's not a black wire on yours, I'm kind of confused. It should be a black wire, but you could always check it with a multimeter. Now, I did not just grab the 12 volts straight from that and take it to this because I wanted a nice fat wire coming from the battery for a positive. So I ran a relay up under the seat. Hopefully you know what a relay is. Basically, a relay is just kind of like a fancy switch that gets power from another wire, sort of, kind of. It's kind of confusing. Watch a video if you don't know. But the 12 volt black wire with from the tail light harness goes into the relay, and as soon as you turn it on, it opens up the relay or connects the relay, and there's a wire coming straight off the battery straight to my bottom two lights. So it's plenty of power. It's an LED, so it's not going to pull that much power, but I just wanted to make sure that it was going to be bright and good because obviously it's going to be on during, stops and goes, and I didn't want them flickering, so I just put them straight on a relay and straight to the battery. Now we know how I did the running lights. Now as for the high beam, you could do this the exact same way, but you would have to get your trigger wire, which was that black ignition wire from the tail light harness, but you would have to get the wire from whatever switch you wanted, whether it was the switch up top or a new switch, or you could put a switch anywhere on the bike, it would work. But I personally didn't want to run two relays. I didn't have two relays for one, but I just thought one LED, it probably won't hurt it. So I just ran it straight off the wire that comes straight off the switch. So the way that I did that is I grabbed the connector and part of the wire, like a little length of the wire that comes off of the stock headlight assembly, cut that off, plugged it in, multimetered it, found as soon as it got 12 volts, whenever I turned on the bike and everything and hit the high beams, it got 12 volts. So that's kind of how I did it. It was not very, very difficult. I don't remember what wire it was, and the wire is different for me anyways because the switch is different. So I really don't want to tell you guys a certain wire because it could be different. So just use a multimeter. When you hit your switch that you want to be your high beam and it throws 12 volts, that's your wire. Now we've gone over how I did the running lights and the high beam. As for the turn signals are literally just plug and play. At least for the TST ones, you didn't have to wire them in, but you should be able to keep your stock connectors, so you shouldn't have any problem there. The turn signals should just work just like normal, no issues there. Now, you might have to drill a hole through the bracket if you do want the turn signal. Again, try to make sure they're not too thick because they will hit the fairings. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple install process. Again, the hardest thing about this whole entire install process is definitely the headlight bracket from the OG Grom to the SF. If you have an OG, you don't have to worry about that, and it's a lot more straightforward and a lot easier. But again, if you do have the SF, you're gonna have to do that. You gotta take off the handlebars, the triple tree, make sure you got that 30mm socket. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of wires, a lot of cables. So that is a little bit of a task to do, but it's definitely doable. There's no problem with that. But that's pretty much it. The only other piece of advice that I'll give you that I just thought about, maybe use a little bit of Loctite on these bolts going into the headlight and all that. One of the bolts that goes into my second light bar came loose and it was just jiggling all over the place. So maybe use some Loctite. I haven't had any trouble yet. So anyways, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Again, sorry I didn't take the whole thing apart, but then again, if I took the whole thing apart, I feel like I would have confused you more than helped you. So give me a break this 1 week and then I'll be back to normal. So anyways, I'll see you guys next week.